Hello, today I'm going to be reviewing an album by a Scottish singer-songwriter named Emeli Sandé. Her real name is actually Adele Emeli Sandé, but as she was coming up in the scene right around when the big Adele was at the same time, she decided to take her middle name as her stage name to avoid confusion. I think it's interesting that they're both named Adele because they actually both have in the UK risen to big similar high statuses and are amazing talented singers and songwriters. I actually have an interesting story discovering Emeli Sandé. I'm reviewing her first album, which is called Our Version of Events. It was released in the UK on February, I believe, 13th of 2012. And it was not released in the US until June 5th of 2012. That's when I actually heard the full album. They actually changed the track listing around a little bit for the US release. They took out the song Read All About It Part 3 and instead added a Naughty Boy song, which Emeli happened to provide vocals for, called Wonder, and put that as track 4 on the US version's track list. So I will be reviewing predominantly how the US one was structured, but I also will talk about Read All About It as well, because that is also a beautiful song. So the first single off of this album, called Heaven, the reason why I actually discovered Emeli was I happened to be in Scotland, where she is from. It's the only time I've ever been in Scotland, and it was August of 2011. And, you see ads sometimes on your laptop for, things that have to do with the location that your laptop is. So I happened to see an ad for Heaven by Emeli Sandé. In the US, the song would not have been getting enough traction to be like providing ads for, but in the UK, the song was just being released and they were trying to put a lot of energy behind it. And Emeli's been in the industry for a while. She actually studied medicine in a university in Glasgow, and she decided to eventually quit that when she realized that her music career was actually kind of going somewhere. She always wanted to have, her university education, her medical background as something to fall back on in case things fell apart. But she'd been working in the industry before the album finally came to the surface in 2012. She's worked with Alicia Keys. Obviously, she's worked a lot with Naughty Boy, as well as Professor Green, another producer. She's worked, and written since she was young. She's a very talented poet, I like to call her, and she really calls herself a poet beyond all else, who believes in a strong melody and strong lyrics above all else that really captures the essence of the emotion of a song. I consider her the Nina Simone of this decade, or even of this 21st century. She really stands out for me in terms of pop vocalists who have a little bit of an R&B classical lean to them. And again, Alicia Keys is a good comparison. She's not that well known, and I think she's severely underrated, especially in the United States. She's a little bit bigger in the UK. Our Version of Events actually was a huge success. The album actually went double platinum, and it remained in the top spot of the UK albums chart for 5 consecutive weeks. And it was one of the fastest selling albums by a British artist in the last few years of that before the release. So it did pretty well, rivaling Adele's 21 record, which has just come out the year before. So this album had broad-reaching appeal, and it did reach over into the United States. It spawned a lot of hit singles, Heaven being one of my favorite songs from this album, which is, of course, the first track. The first song that I heard that introduced me to it. It has a beautiful music video where she is sort of showing homeless people in a city, and this sort of essence of desperation and yet finding hope in the most sort of tragic and difficult times in your life. Heaven, has this bit of this dubstep sort of, it's inspired by, obviously Naughty Boy used this funky drummer sample, which has been used by Massive Attack for their song Unfinished Symphony, and some people drew comparison, but I don't necessarily think that that's a big enough deal. I mean, everyone samples things. The song is completely different, the sound of it, the melody of it. But the song is inspired. Emeli's not a religious person, but she has, a very strong sense of spirituality. She believes in heaven, she believes in God, but she doesn't know what to call that. And so the idea of heaven is broader in this song, about finding a moment of utopia, of euphoric ecstasy. She calls this her nightclub song, where everyone just puts their hands up in the air and just feels, at one and sort of overswept by the beauty of the moment. And I think that's what this song embodies. It's a little bit melancholy, and it is a desperate song. There's a lot of, her delivery has a playful, her delivery is strained, and it's almost begging. Oh heaven, I wake with good intentions, but the day it always lasts too long. Then I'm gone. And she repeats that over and over and over. The day always lasts too long. People always talk about time never having enough hours in the day. To hear it said the other way around kind of flips the script, and I think makes you think a little bit more about the actual meaning of this song, because you realize that it's saying something quite unique. Every day I wake up and I try my best, but the day always gets me down. There's something about every single day that leaves me feeling drained, but I still do my best every single day because I want to get to heaven. I want to be in heaven. I want my life to be heavenly. And I'm trying every single damn day. Then I'm gone, maybe then I'm passed out. I'm so exhausted from the day, I'm just sleeping. The urgency and the buildup is just so cathartic. I find this song just so energizing, but at the same time, it's very bittersweet. I see so much pain attached to the creation and the delivery of this song. It's a song that's built from the ashes, and it speaks to that, and it really hit home for me. Another single from this album, My Kind of Love, which is the second track, is this super soulful pop ballad. It's one of the strongest melody pop ballads on this record, and it's the last track that she composed for the album, about unconditional love. Her fiance at the time, Adam, how she felt and how he felt about her, this sort of untouchable bond that they shared. That's the kind of love that she is all about. I can't buy your love, don't even want to try. Sometimes the truth won't make you happy, still I'm not gonna lie. But don't ever question if my heart beats only for you. Because when you've given up, when no matter what you do, it's never good enough, that's when you never thought that it could ever get this tough, that's when you feel my kind of love. The music video is about someone with cancer in a hospital. And it shows Emeli dealing with this, interacting with this cancer patient and sort of taking her during her last days, terminal cancer, and sort of giving her this unconditional friendship, this attachment that she desperately needs, on her last days, to get out of that hospital and be on the seaside and see the mountains and be with someone and truly feel that connection is just the most powerful, important thing to give someone. And we don't want to ever leave this earth without feeling that or giving that to someone else. Emeli is such a giving and caring person, and you can just hear that through how sincere she is on all of her lyrics. They're so rich in full of affection. She's someone who you can tell loves and cares truly deeply for obviously anyone she's romantically involved with, but also just humanity in general. And I think that sincerity is always what kind of attached me, not to mention her amazing vocal abilities that rival likes of Aretha Franklin or of Adele or any of these sort of more powerful vocalists, Christina Aguilera. Where I Sleep is sort of this more kind of quiet, soft song. It reminds me a lot of a Beyonce track. I feel like it would have fit very well on Beyonce's 4 album. She carries that Beyonce tone that's a little bit more R&B, so a little bit less pop, and it kind of has this lullaby-like structure. You're the one that I want to put my head down with next to every night in bed. This is where I want to be, right next to you, right by your side. She carries through these, it's interesting. She doesn't necessarily say that her songs are actually always that romantic, but I disagree. I think her songs are always very clearly romantic, and although it is easy to turn any sort of song into a romance song, her songs are so endearing and caring. She doesn't make them too specific either. She does keep specificity out of a lot of these songs. There's very few sort of very anecdotal influences, especially on some of her earlier songs. I think later on in her career, she starts to embrace getting a little bit more personal, but the personality is more in the delivery and the emotion behind her vocal performance than necessarily the lyrics describing something painfully close to home for her. They're very more broad and open to interpretation. So Wonder is not featured on the UK release, but on the US release, it's listed as track number 4. This is a purely Naughty Boy song. Shahid Khan, who is a producer who produced most of this album, and he's done work for Zayn, he's done work for a lot of artists, particularly in the UK. And I think Wonder is one of the best pop songs. It's one of the most danceable and cathartic songs. This light is contagious, go on and tell your neighbors. She sings that over and over again. And it's infectious. The beat and the message of this song, you can't help but feel uplifted. When everything feels wrong and darkness falls upon us, just try and sing along. This is a message from Cabana. I was always a little intrigued by that line because as far as I'm aware, I still don't really know what she means by that. A cabana is like a hut, or it's like an indigenous structure, and it's used as like a cabana. You know, people talk about cabanas. Cabana, I don't exactly know what that is as a person in some sort of, you know, religious, traditional, you know, I'm not entirely sure by that, but it's an interesting lyric. If anyone has any info about that, I haven't really been able to find anything about what she means by that line. I'd be very interested. There's something very cinematic about a lot of Emeli's songs, and I think Mountains is a perfect example of this. This song is more stripped back, and she actually kind of realized that, you know, her songs can be either really powerful, very euphoric and all-encompassing in sound, or they're very stripped back and acoustic. There's not a lot of middle ground, and I think this song sort of hits the middle ground pretty well because there's this nice sweeping orchestral backing to this song that just adds a little bit more flavor to the more guitar-laden instrumental carried melody where she's just singing on her guitar. When she's just at her guitar or just at her piano, it's a magical experience. And that's why I truly see her as more of almost a songwriter than a performer. She's, you know, content writing melodies and songs for other artists. In fact, she's written quite a few songs that have been picked up by other artists. Her parents, you know, it's this song is an ode to them, to the struggle that they had to, when they eventually moved into Sunderland in Scotland, the place where she was from. Her father came from Zambia, and they worked really hard. They climbed all these mountains together to build a new family that Emeli was so fortunate to grow up in. I keep my fingers crossed that we're going to be able. I touch the wood for luck on our broken table. I know that it's our heart that's going to save us. If we never come back, how can they blame us? In the verses, she depicts this trepidation that many of us have when, you know, we're working long hours and we're not entirely sure if all of this is worth it. You know, do we have enough food on the table? Are we doing the right thing by moving to this country or this place and changing everything and risking everything for the better? Is this actually all worth it? But at the end of the day, we're here together again. It's that sincerity of bond, that togetherness, that is the essence of all of Emeli's music. You know, we are stronger as one. That Unitarian message comes through in all of these songs, and it gives it that broad appeal because, again, this doesn't necessarily have to be about her and a partner. This could be about a best friend or a family unit that's trying to stay together during hard times. We'll keep together, and these mountains we'll be able to climb. And the melody is a more timid melody. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's just this heartfelt, earnest, you know, song, like so many of these are. And sometimes the melody doesn't have to hit you over the head. Sometimes the lyrics take more of center stage. And I think a lot more of these sort of more acoustic songs focus on that. They focus so heavily on the lyrics and almost on the delivery of them. She makes it so sincere and heartfelt that the melody just sort of becomes more of a background. Clown is the most heartfelt and beautiful ballad on this album. I guess it's funnier from where you're standing, because from over here I missed the joke. Clear the way for my crash landing. I always loved that lyric. I've done it again, another number for your notes. I'd be smiling if I wasn't so desperate. I'd be patient if I had the time. I could stop and answer all of your questions as soon as I find out how I can move from the back of the line. I'll be your clown behind the glass. Go ahead and laugh, because it's funny. I would too if I saw me. I'll be your clown on your favorite channel. My life's a circus, round in circles. I'm selling out tonight. This is the pure definition of the most clever and well-delivered lyrics that I have heard in a long time. I get a very strong feminist power to this song, speaking of a woman who is not being treated fairly by her partner or her husband. She's sort of just there for entertainment. And also, you know, her life may be a little bit all over the place, but, you know, it's not her fault. You know, the song is self deprecating, and it shows that, you know, Emeli is seriously trying to work through these sort of relationship issues she may have, where she doesn't necessarily feel as though she's good enough for her partner, and maybe her partner's not doing enough to let her know that she is actually not just a, you know, funny channel on TV that's fun to watch occasionally. That her life is not a circus, even though sometimes life is chaotic and sometimes we do crash land. Sometimes we look like crap and we just don't know how to present ourselves in a way that makes us look like we're always on top of our game, because we're just not. It's your partner sees all of you, and you don't want to be a freak show to them. You want them to love you through all of your phases and all of the ways you deal with life. And I think women in general often feel this way, you know, feeling behind glass, or someone who feels constantly picked on by from some issue, like minorities for race, for example, or just someone who just constantly feels undervalued because of some shortcoming they may have. Go ahead and laugh then. I would laugh at me too, because heck, I don't have high self-esteem either. You think I know that I'm the only disabled person here. You don't think I don't know that I am like the shyest person here. You don't think that I don't know that I can't do all these other things that you guys can do. Well, yeah, that's fine, but there's more to me than just these judgments that you cast unfairly upon me. So in a way, she is sort of giving up. It's a bit of a defeatist message, but I ultimately think it's a hopeful one at the end, because she's helping the other party sort of see through the ruse of their own lens, you know, like the distortion of it. So it's a very clever song, and I think it beautifully illustrates how people can never judge a book by its cover, can never truly judge someone based on just one thing about them, that we all have shortcomings. We all have things about us that we're not proud of. We all can be a bit self-deprecating. We all, you know, need to help to build up what we do find attractive and appealing about others, and not focus so much on those, you know, other differences that aren't, you know, important enough to really to actually matter in the long run. You know, we're all different. We're not the same person. We're not, you know, going to be good at the same things. We're not going to handle life the same way. And we're all imperfect. No one's perfect. I mean, my life is a circus. I mean, seriously. Daddy picks up a little bit more of that pop R&B, sort of a little bit hip hop inspired sound. It's the pitfalls and trappings of fame and drugs. A lover or a husband who is, you know, hitting the bottles a little bit too often, a little promiscuous, out every night. And, you know, I see this as coming from the perspective of a child, you know, like when they look at their parents and they see this fractured relationship, and the dad is probably cheating on the mother and going out every night, and yet the mom seems so desperately trying to attract him by dressing a certain way. You know, the kid can tell that the tension is there, and the kid can tell that the mom is trying so hard to, you know, get the guy back in his life, but there's this futile sort of desperation to this song. It's like, you can't win this battle, you know, don't fight this. This is a lose-lose situation. You need to get out of this relationship. He's never going to treat you fairly. He's not the right guy for you, yet you constantly act like he is in some sort of, you know, desperate plea to keep things together. It's a very desperate track, and kind of depressing at that. And, you know, that darker side of reality, Emeli doesn't shy away from describing. Maybe Suitcase and Breaking the Law are three a lot more acoustic, smaller songs. And I say smaller, not necessarily, they are shorter. It kind of just feel like one cohesive sort of thought carried through song. maybe is sort of ruminating on a relationship that possibly isn't going anywhere. And maybe it's time for us to take some time apart. It builds again with this beautiful sweeping orchestral instrumental in the background. It illustrates in the verses all these far too familiar scenes that we all go through with relationships where no one's speaking to the other. We're locking, we're slamming doors, we're just at that breaking point. And Suitcase is a lot more kind of forlorn and desperate and much more stripped back. It's really just acoustic guitar singing about, why did I suddenly see a suitcase on my lover's bed? What is he leaving me? This sort of feeling of, oh God, did it really get this bad? I don't want him to leave. He's telling me that it's too late and I don't understand what I did wrong. This is one of the few times where the sort of attention shifts to this sort of innocent, sort of like I don't know what happened, but I really don't think I did anything wrong. You're just overreacting. I can't stop my heart leaving through the door. Her heart being her lover. I can't do anything. I can't stop him from leaving. But all I'm left with is possible regret, a lot of stuff to mull over. Just tell me what's going on. I need someone to help me. And I think that, it was really cathartic for her to release these sort of songs like this, to just sort of get all this out of her system. Breaking the Law is dedicated to her sister. They're very, very close. And it's basically describing, I'll do anything for you. I'll break the law for you. The police can chase us, but we're together for life. They have such a close relationship. She was the first person Emeli would play her music for, and their bond has sort of been this inspirational thing for Emeli. And you can hear that heartfelt, togetherness again in this song very strongly. So Next to Me was sort of like the second really, or third, I can't remember, really big single. This song got a lot of recognition both in the UK and in the US. It had that anthemic, relatable, special something that I think gave it that niche in radio, and it really took off and took over. And it's kind of the flagship song for this album, I think, in terms of commercial success. Although I believe Heaven is a much stronger song, this song is sort of the biggest radio hit from this album. And it's an undying love song. Again, it's funny that Emeli feels as though she doesn't necessarily classify all her music as purely romantic. And again, I see how she doesn't want to pigeonhole it like that. But this is an undying, you need to be by my side. That's the place where you belong. The world can end. All this shit can happen, but as long as you're with me, we can tackle everything together. It's an undeniably catchy song. I mean, it's a band song. It reminds me of like Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings horns. It has a little bit of that jazz aesthetic, that backbone that I think made it a successful hit song. It had all the formulas working pretty well. But it kind of overstayed its welcome for me. It's actually not my favorite song on this album. I think it's a little overrated, but that's how, when one song sort of takes off, it's like Little Talks from Of Monsters and Men. I don't like that song. I don't know why it got so big, but for some reason it did, and whatever. At least it got the artist somewhat into the mainstream consciousness, but it's definitely overplayed and overrated, but whatever. Anything to get Emeli into the mainstream. River. This is such an emotional track. It's really the only track on this album, or one of the only tracks where it's just her on the piano, which I think is another really strong suit for her. There's sort of this strong kind of motherly love that she's exploring and speaking about, how she could be a river for I believe like her children to follow. I'll keep you going. And then also, of course, that relationship of meeting someone and, realizing that this is going to sweep us all away. If you're too big to follow rivers, how are you ever going to find the seas? If rivers are too powerful for you. And I think women are often compared to like a body of water, constantly flowing and consistent, but also like constantly moving and changing and twisting and turning. And I think that, again, there's just this strong sort of matriarchal feel to this song about, in a relationship, sort of learning to accept and go with the flow instead of being so, masculine about everything, letting the other party like kind of accept the sort of more feminine nature of a relationship and emotion, which I think is always a much healthier way to deal with emotions and to deal with life in general. Take things as they come and let the river carry you, instead of fight against it and try and swim up current or dam the river. It's just going to breach it and it's going to be 10 times more catastrophic. So that analogy of her love being like a river, I think is just a beautiful poetic. Again, her lyricism comes off beautifully in this song, and also her piano prowess. Adele, you know, you've got a rival here. She knows how to create piano ballads, and her voice has a lot of texture and tone, and she really shows it off beautifully in this song. Lifetime is a really cute song. I love how at the beginning it starts out with the sound going from one headphone to the other, and it basically just reflects on life and the transience of it. You know, one day the radio will be playing this song, the next it'll playing another. The whole world can change within a year. You know, the wine is always there until it's suddenly gone. And you know, you need to cherish the moment. But the one thing that is constant is you know, yourself, your body. And you last a whole lifetime. It sounds cliche, but it's a really important thing to remember, that, you know, you have to value yourself above all else, because you're your own everything, you know, and you're, although your mind may change and the clothes you wear may change and all these things around your circumstance and surroundings may change, you will ultimately be the same soul, the same person throughout your entire life. And I think that this song is also a bit of a diss to materialism, because it's basically saying, you know, that all can leave, that can fade, you know, houses can burn down, things expire, but you don't, you know, and emotion is something you can't put a price tag on. Hope is a song that was co-written with Alicia Keys, and you can really hear that influence, because this song is about race and, you know, overcoming obstacles for humanity in general, for a more diverse, more accepting planet that we all want to live on in the future. You know, she sings, "I hope that Martin can see us. I hope that we still have a dream." It's a little bit more bittersweet, a little bit more melancholic, but at the same time, there's so much hope in her tone and in the softness to this song. It's like, I know everything's going to be okay. I know everything's going to be okay. Again, another beautiful piano ballad. I hope that we stop taking advantage of all of the land and all of the sea. You know, there's an environmental theme of, I hope that we stop turning our back on the young, and that a child doesn't ever have to bear the weight of a gun. I mean, these are heavy topics, but this is something, you know, it may seem cliche and utopian, but it's so important that we remember, you know, what we're fighting for is the youth of tomorrow, for a better planet, for a healthier planet, for a better society. And ultimately, I'm hoping that change isn't hopeless. I'm hoping that hope isn't hopeless. Because I'm hoping we never run out of it. We can't run out of hope. And I hope I'm not the only one. I think we all can share this sentiment when we're all feeling like, why is the world like this? I need to change something. But I'm just one person. And although I want to start something, I really hope there's a lot of other people who also feel the same way, because that's where we can really make change, is when we get together. And again, that sort of Unitarian message comes through beautifully in her music. You know, mellow, but at the same time, steady and powerful. I think she blends all these factors beautifully to creating a song that's very memorable for me and very emotional. It really speaks to the times that we live in right now. And you can definitely tell, I mean, Alicia Keys is an amazing songwriter. She also writes about similar topics. So putting them together is just a very powerful kind of thing to come through. Read All About It Part 3 is a song that concludes this album on the UK version. It's actually the one song that says our version of events in the song itself, which is the title of the album. This song basically, I think, speaks about someone who wants to let their voice be heard, but they've been too afraid and too scared, thinking that they're just one person. They don't matter. But this song is basically encouraging and inspirational. And I think it's speaking about herself. You know, it's speaking about how she, coming up into the industry, realized that she had a message that she wanted to get out there. She wanted to sing. She wanted to get it all out there, and you can read all about it in the papers. And there's a little bit of like, I don't care what they say about me. I'm gonna, you know, I know what I'm doing. I know my intentions. At night, we're waking up the neighbors while we sing away the blues, making sure that we're remembered, because we all matter too. If the truth has been forbidden, then we're breaking all the rules. It's time we got the airplay of our version of events. And I think that that sort of speaks to the underdog of rising up, the underdog being so many different groups of people. But I really do think it's like the underprivileged, the overlooked, the people who always felt like different from everyone else, and bullied and downtrodden. This is a song, an anthem for them, and I think this is ultimately an album for them. I think, you know, our version of events speaks to, you know, a sense of identity, a branding of like, this is a generation that is overlooked, or, you know, a group of people that is not going to stand up for this anymore. You know, we're constantly treated unequally or unfairly, and we have a song to sing. It mirrors a lot of sort of the African American blues aesthetic that sort of rose up in the United States. And that's why I think blues music is sort of a nice sort of, although her music, I don't necessarily consider it too blues in the genre. I think in the aesthetic of it, it fits beautifully into that sort of sentiment of, you know, it's melancholic and it's sad. We're singing about what's going on right now, but there's this hope to it that this is our chance to have the microphone finally be pointed in our direction, because for so long we've been silenced, and so it's just another beautiful piano ballad. It's more a little bit tinged with that bittersweet melancholy, which I love. And again, the powerful vocals, it's a beautiful combination that she sells beautifully. I think the variety is nice. I like that we get the more pop songs, and then we get sort of the more blues-inspired instrumental acoustic songs, because they give that heart and levity to space things out. Overall, I highly recommend this record. I can't, you know, I needed to get it reviewed on this channel because she also has another album out called Long Live the Angels, which came out last year, which just her sophomore album, which I definitely am looking forward to review, because I actually think that, I'm not entirely sure, I don't think that album's necessarily better, but it's definitely a worthy succession from her first record, and I can't wait to review that as well. So I will be reviewing that, as well as a new EP that she just released. She's finally releasing a lot of new music. She kind of took a little bit of a break after this album was released, and it took 5 years for her to release her second album. But, you know, that's because she put her time and effort into this. There's a lot of character and soul in this music. And again, if you like Alicia Keys or Aretha Franklin, Mary J. Blige, Leona Lewis, Stevie Wonder, George Michael, if you know, Adele, if you are into any of these kind of big soulful artists, you will love Emeli's music. I mean, you can't help but feel, or Sharon Jones. So I definitely recommend this. I think she's horribly overlooked. And she is another big Adele from the UK that no one knows about, because that is her real name. So I hope you enjoyed this review, and I look forward to doing reviews of her other projects and seeing where she continues moving in her career, because she's really starting to, I think, build up some momentum again. Sure, her music's going in a little bit more of a hip-hop direction now, which you kind of could see when she was working with Naughty Boy, because there is some vague hip-hop elements to some of her more pop tracks, which I don't think is a bad thing, because Alicia Keys does hip-hop crossover really well as well, and I think that she's got a soulful voice for it as well, so she can definitely pull it off. But this album is definitely a little bit more, a little like more orchestral. I hope you enjoyed this. Please like and subscribe, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Peace, love, and light. Bye.